Hey guys, before the video starts, I wanted to let you all know that I started streaming on Twitch. So, the link for my Twitch is in the channel description, and I will put it in the video description on this video. And after I upload the videos around the afternoons on Saturdays, if you're on my Discord, I already said that I'll start uploading every Saturday. After I upload, I'm then going to go over to Twitch and start streaming Minecraft. So, after you guys watch this video, come join me on my Minecraft stream and talk with me for a little while about Army Men, YouTube, whatever. So, if you guys enjoy Minecraft and you enjoy me, make sure you guys definitely head over to my Twitch, ThePlasticCommander. Thanks. Hey all, Plastic Commander here, and if you live in Texas just like me, you know what time of year it is.
It's the time of year where elderly people die due to our terrible power grid.
But you know, this cold weather got me thinking, are there any Army men out there that are outfitted for cold weather? Well, luckily, there are. Today we're going to be looking at 3 sets by the company Classic Toy Soldiers. Classic Toy Soldiers has been a seller that has been around for a very long time, and they've produced some very high quality figures, and I would definitely suggest checking out their eBay store and their website. And we're going to be looking at 3 of their sets today that are based off the Korean War. 1 Chinese, 1 Korean, and 1 American. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So, in the 1950s, directly after the Second World War, the New World Order was kind of split between the Soviet Union and the Allies, like the United States, UK, basically the UN and NATO. On one end, you had NATO, and on the other end, you had Comic-Con. But not a lot of people know a whole lot about what was going on in the East. So, basically, China thought it would be a good idea to kill all of the birds. And in fact, it was not a good idea, but we're not going to really talk about China right now. We're talking about the Korean War. So, the Korean War happened in the 1950s. I'm not a big expert on the Korean War, and most people aren't. It's definitely the forgotten war. I have actually met a handful of Korea veterans. I met a gentleman that I worked with a long time ago who actually was a fighter pilot and was shot down over North Korea and was in a POW camp. So that was really, really interesting talking to him and his story, and a really, really scary situation he was put in. So, basically, the Korean War, you had, I believe it was Kim Il-sung, I could be wrong, who's the grandfather of Kim Jong-un, the current leader of North Korea. And he was basically emboldened by Joseph Stalin to invade South Korea. The Soviet Union had supplied North Korea with a lot of resources, weaponry especially, and practically just kind of gave them the green light to go ahead and invade the South, which was their neighbor. Korea had been practically a vassal state to the Japanese Empire for decades upon decades, and finally, after World War II, when the Japanese Empire fell apart, they became their own country. And during the conferences during the Yalta Conference, basically where they were reshaping what all of these countries that were kind of victim, essentially, to Nazi Germany and Japan, basically how they would be reshaped, it was decided Korea would be able to be on its own, and it's split in half, with one half being communist and the other half being democratic. So, North Korea invaded South Korea, and the United Nations freaked out. The big reason they freaked out was because most of the countries in the UN didn't have that big of any military, because this was after World War II, so most of the countries disbanded their militaries. That happens after war a lot. Just, you don't need a huge military after a war is over. So usually another war doesn't break out super quick like that, I guess, unless it's the coalition wars with Napoleon. But other than that, so the United Nations scrambled to get a task force into Korea, and they actually managed to help push the North Koreans back across the 38th parallel, and they started invading North Korea. so they could unify under the South Korean government. And as they got pretty far inland, China got freaked out, and in China they threw their hat in the ring and began fighting the Americans and the British and the French and all the other, and the South Koreans, of course. So it lasted many, many years. Well, not many, more like 4 or 5. I'm not sure on the exact time frame. I don't do research before I make these videos. Why would I? But anyway, we have 3 sets by Classic Toy Soldiers based off the Forgotten War. We have Americans, we got Chinese, and we have North Koreans. So first, we're going to take a look at the Americans, and then we're going to look at the Chinese and the North Koreans together. So let's get right into it. So up first, we have the American soldiers. So these are some of the biggest effing figures I've ever got.
Here he comes.
I like 'em big. I like 'em chunky. I like 'em big.
Like, look at this guy right here. Just bigger than my palm, pretty much. He has a massive bazooka that's the size of another guy. Just crazy. And these are the heftiest, chalkiest figures I've seen. It's amazing that the fact you get 16 of these guys as well as the other 2 sets. The other 2 are pretty much just like regular army men. They're 132 pretty much. These are slightly bigger. These are more like 130 or maybe 128 even. These are really hefty figures, and they're really detailed. We got a lot of detail on this M1 bazooka. We got a lot of detail on his backpack, his Alice pack, canteen, of course. They always have to have a canteen. You know, can't go to war if you're thirsty. That's why they also have tinder in the field. And we got a rifleman as well. We got a crouching rifleman. And they're all in winter gear, which is kind of why they're so chalky. But yeah, these are really hefty, good, weighty figures. They very much remind me of the medieval fantasy figures that Timmy made that a lot of people use for D&D. Those figures are a lot bigger. They're also they're bigger than 132. So we do got some curvature here in a few of the figures. They're pretty much the same material that Toy Soldiers of San Diego and Paragon uses, which go check out Paragon's figures. I haven't reviewed any yet. But we got this guy. This guy just looks cool. This is probably my second favorite out of all of them. He's got a hood over. Looks like he's wearing a military grade jacket. I saw a vintage military army jacket from like the 50s for like $100 at this army surplus store a long time ago. And I didn't get it because I'm an idiot, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, and this guy is my favorite. This guy is what made me want to buy this set so bad. He's got what looks to be probably a poncho thrown over him, and he's going to war in the cold. So, a lot of the Korean War was fought in mountainous areas. In fact, one of the most famous battles was on a mountain. Basically, the U.S. Marines, which these guys are Marines, were surrounded by Chinese forces for, I want to say, about 2-3 months. Again, I'm not an expert on the Korean War, so don't attack me in the comments. And they had to hold out against them, and they managed to survive. So it was a very cold war when they started landing in South Korea. Real muddy, real wet. It was a real wet time of year. So, again, another favorite guy. I just absolutely love the detail on these figures. Looks like this guy is trying to find his pack of cigarettes. Very much reminds me of a few of my family members. And we got this guy with a 1911 and an M1 carbine. And he looks like he's about to cap all the Chinese and North Korean soldiers he sees. So, really cool. And you can see his holster right there. I really critique figures with pistols that don't have holsters. And we got another rifleman who's standing up. Always have to have a couple of different riflemen in the set. So, these figures are super nice. I would recommend starting by buying these figures first. Mostly, honestly, I think you should buy all 3 of these sets together if you have the money. Each of these sets will run you between $20 to $30. The Chinese set is the most expensive. Both the North Korean and this set are slightly cheaper. I'm not sure why the Chinese one's more expensive, but Classic Toy Soldiers does have a lot of other options. They have some of these figures that you can buy with like a vehicle, and that's really, really cool. So anyway, the American Korean War Marines. Awesome figures if you really want something wintry. And up next, we got the North Koreans and the Chinese. And I wrote these two together not only to make editing a lot more simpler, but these guys are both allies, so to me it made sense. So before we get started, these are great additions for your tan army right off the bat. Like, you really, if you're building up a tan army, which I'm working on my tans right now, I'm trying to get them a little bit more built up. I realized I'm kind of been neglecting them. These are two great sets that you really should get. And we'll look at the North Koreans first. So, a lot of the weapons the North Koreans were supplied from the Soviet Union, just like how North Vietnam was supplied. However, the Soviet Union, interestingly enough, and this is something I do know about the Korean War, got in a lot of hot water for supplying North Korea. And in the United Nations, they actually brought weapons from the field, like we're going to bring up this guy next with a PPSH, which is a Soviet weapon. They brought PPSHs, they brought Mosin-Nagants that the North Koreans were using, and they called out the Soviet Union. I can't remember which country it was. I believe it was the United States. The UN ambassador that was there on the council called out the Soviet Union for supplying them and provoking aggression. So, in fact, this right here I think is an SVT. I could be wrong. So, North Korea was not only supplied by the Soviet Union, but later China, when China started fighting as well. Now, in the Vietnam War, as you know, the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, or the National Liberation Front, whichever you want to call it, also used AK-47s and Mosin-Nagants. And a lot of that not only was Soviet-era surplus from the Second World War, but the AK-47s were actually made in China. Basically, the Soviet Union gave China the blueprints for the AK-47 so they could then manufacture it and they could supply North Korea to absolve the Soviet Union of being accused like they were in the Korean War, which is a loophole that they found, but still. So we got a rifleman, of course. This guy right here, I guess the backpack kind of weighs him down. He's a little far up on the base because he just falls over. He was falling over a second ago. I'm really not making. There he goes, tumbling down like the walls of Jericho. Yeah, he was, and he just fell over off screen. And I know I can't prove that to you without a backup camera, but just take my word for it. Trust your good old friend, ThePlasticCommander. So, we got a guy who's marching. Got his rucksack. He has a little back pouch. Let me get the camera to focus a little better. There we go. Very interesting looking face. Kind of looks like Dopey. Or one of the Seven Dwarfs. And his rifle's bit, like I said, same material that TSSD uses, mostly because it's just way easier to get good molds out of it. So, probably my favorite figure in this set is this guy wielding this Soviet machine gun, just absolutely getting ready to spray down the field. And he looks really good because not only could he look like he's just carrying this normally, but he also looks like he could just be mowing down some people by himself. That's what I really like about this figure. I like figures that are very multifunctional. Like, you look at them and they could be doing multiple things. That's a really important thing to have when you're making army men, to have figures that are multifunctional. That's also why I like Timmy's figures so much, because the Minesweeper guy, he could be a guy with a shovel as well as a Minesweeper, or an engineer. You also got the guy who was supposed to be the grenade thrower. He looks like he's getting shot. You can lay him down, make him look like he's dead. You can slide his arm up under the sergeant's arm, the guy with the binoculars and pistol, and make it look like he's carrying his wounded buddy. So, multifunctionality in figures is very, very important whenever you're deciding army men. So we got another guy with the PPSH. His ammo bag. Really, really cool. And finally, out of all these figures, this one is probably my second favorite, we have the NCO. And this makes a good tan commander. Really, both of these sets are great for your tan army. I would recommend them really if you just want to beef your tan army up, or if you're building like a winter battalion for your tan army, like definitely get these figures. I can't stress that enough. So, moving on, let's look at the Chinese troops, which are very similar. They're a bit of a darker tan, a little bit more orange now that I'm looking at them a little closer up. But they're pretty much the same. They're very similar. The hats are different. The Chinese army had these hats. I don't know what they're called. Like I'm unsure what these hats are called. But I see a lot of weeaboo communists wear them all the time out in public. So that's why I don't wear them or know what they're called. And we got this guy, which this guy's gotta be my favorite out of all of these, because he has 2 grenades. Like he's gonna jump into a foxhole of a poor American and toss 2 grenades down and blow him up out of the field. He's got his rifle back here. I don't know what the Chinese used as their rifle, but I know the ones that they have are pretty old, just by looking at how the bayonets are. So, but still really cool. This is probably my favorite figure just for that. Or you could put a drum in front of him and make him look like he's banging on a drum. Multi-functionality, people. And of course we got a rifleman, and this rifle turned out real good. But here's what I'm talking about, that bayonet, just the way it's arched like that. That's what leads me to believe this is one of the older rifles from earlier in the century. I'm not sure what the Chinese army kit was back then. I need to really study up on my Korean war history, because I'm definitely out of the loop. But yeah, very nice rifleman. He's got his potato masher grenades right here. And we got this guy who's running. Looks like he's reloading, which is very, very interesting. One thing I will say, it looks like he has rectangular ammo bags, but he has a PPSH. Like, the PPSH normally was a drum bag. Now, I know there are some that do have the rectangular magazine, but yeah, kind of interesting. Normally it's a drum bag, so very, very interesting, but very cool. We don't see a lot of guys who are reloading. So, again, he could just be marching, he could be reloading, running to cover. Multi-functionality. And up next, we got a sniper. Got a sniper. It looks like he's just holding on to the regular rifle given to the Chinese infantry. The Mosin Nagant, I do know, had many versions. Some were like carbines, some were like just regular rifles. There was a sniper version of the Mosin Nagant. Go to your local pawn shop if you want to see an example of a decent Mosin Nagant. And then probably my second favorite figure, again, I want to say my favorite. I'm real torn between this guy and this guy. We got a tan commander, or a Chinese commander. Looks like he's jumping into the fight and opening fire with, I want to say a Tokarev, or I don't know how to pronounce it. And of course, we got another rifleman crouched down on his knees, giving the evil invading Americans the business. Might be a little outmatched for this one right here. So, and finally, out of all these, we have the last guy who is wielding the PPSH. So you got your one guy, he's reloading, switch him over, now he's loaded and ready to jump into the fight. So, really, really cool. So in each of these sets, you get 8 poses, the Americans, North Koreans, and the Chinese. You get 8 different poses and 16 in each set. Now, I think there's slightly more in the Chinese set. Don't quote me on that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, because when I was going through them, I feel like I saw 3 of multiple poses. So I think maybe I got more than I was supposed to, or maybe I'm just crazy. And if you watch my videos, you'll probably agree with that.
Wow. Now that's a group of figures that makes me glad that I wasn't a teenage male in the 1950s, or 40s for that matter. In fact, I'm pretty glad I wasn't a teenager anything before like 1986. Like just anything before that. Yeah, just like anything. Anything. It was all terrible. Your parents lived a terrible life. unless they're baby boomers. Anyway, guys, make sure you guys check out my Discord and my subreddit. My subreddit is Plastic Toy Dudes, and the link to the Discord is in the description of the channel. We just hit 40 people, which is outstanding. I'm really, really glad, and I talk in there pretty much every other day, if not every day, so definitely make sure to come in and share your thoughts about the videos. And just like I said at the start of the video, make sure to come on over to my Twitch, where I'm going to be streaming Minecraft. So if you want to talk to me, if you want to give me video suggestions or anything, just come on over. We had a heck of a time last time with a Leafy. I'm just going to call him Leafy because that's the only part of his name I can remember. He joined and talked for a little while, and we had a real good time. So that goes for the rest of y'all. Please come on over, say hi to the good old Plastic Commander. So anyway, guys, new videos will be up on Saturdays, and they will be followed by a Minecraft stream, so make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out. I'm the Plastic Commander. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Mission accomplished. Well done, man. Pack it up. We're going home.